right, welcome to the Lead Generation World Podcast. My name is Michael Faree. We've got a really great guest today. We've got Kelly Donahue-Piro from Agency Performance Partners. We're going to be talking all things insurance, best practices with regards to building sales teams, customer service, you name it. So, in fact, we have a lot of great content, not just on this podcast for insurance, but we also have a ton of great content planned for Lead Generation World in January. If you want to check it out, go to the website. On the agenda page, there is actually a link just right under the video that says insurance focus agendas. And what we've done, we've put all the insurance sessions that are specific to that industry on that one page. It makes it a little bit easier for you. So go ahead and take a look at that. We've got registration today at $395, but it is going up to $595 December 1st. So hopefully you get a chance to register before then and save a couple $100. So let's go ahead and get started and bring Kelly in and start talking a little shop. Welcome, everyone, to the Lead Generation World Podcast. I've got Kelly Donahue-Piro with me here today. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Excellent to be here. I'm so excited.
Well, I'm really excited to have you, one, on the podcast, but two, at the conference. You have a company called Agency Performance Partners that really helps out agencies continue to grow their business and really find and solve issues that they may be having that's not helping them grow, right?
That is a big challenge that we try to tackle with our clientele all across the U.S. and Canada. We kind of say we want to help your business hit its potential, basically. So there's a lot of agencies out there that we say are stuck being mediocre, and that's just really not a way to live. And so our clients partner with us to help them hit that next level.
Yeah. Before we dig into what more specifically you do and what sort of the issues are out there in the industry for these companies and these businesses, I do kind of like to go back in history a little bit and figure out how you got from, college to where you are now. And I was taking a look at your LinkedIn profile, and it says you have a degree in relationship marketing, which I think is pretty awesome. And I usually do this, and it's funny because we'll look at someone's degree and it's like history, and they become a loan officer or something else out of college. It's something completely different. And to some extent, you sort of did. You got into finance, but relationship marketing really suits what you're doing now, right? Or no?
It's actually, so it's really, I'm going to totally date myself big time here. My whole history of getting into insurance, every time I tell it, I'm like, sometimes some kid is going to look at me and be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Well, I got in, the way that I started in insurance was I was a bank teller at the tail end of high school into college. And it was a good just summer job, and I could float around, and the bank had insurance products, and I needed money for pizza and beer and maybe a book or two. And so they had all these incentives to tee up the opportunities for auto loans or insurance. And I just didn't care. So I'd ask everybody who came into my line. And people are always like, really? People go into banks? And I'm like, yeah, at one point they did go into banks.
Yeah.
This is back when there was only ATM cards were like a new fad, like you couldn't just do everything on your debit card. And, somebody saw some potential in me, and I started kind of working in the corporate side of the finance and banking, and was going to college, and this major popped up. I was in business school, and it was relationship marketing. It was this bleeding, cutting edge major. It's not even a textbook, Michael. This is how crazy it was. No textbook. We only worked off of articles because it was so bleeding edge. And again, this is where I date myself. The bleeding edge was your CVS card on your keychain.
Well, let me tell you,
right?
Yeah. And what happened to the CVS card, by the way? Now it's just a ton of receipts. Oh wait, do they still do that?
You still have
to do the card, right?
Like whatever loyalty card it was, like your grocery store. Everybody was getting cards to everybody to scan and track your buying history and be able to target market in a different way. And so, this was supposed to be the new frontier, which now seems so funny, right? Like Siri knows what I'm going to buy before I do and start serving it up in my Facebook feed. But that was the bleeding edge back in 2003 when I graduated. So the world moved pretty rapidly, but that was the crux of everything, was just starting by hey, if you want to save a little bit of money, scan it, and we're going to collect all your consumer data and aggregate it and figure out exactly what we can offer you to keep spending more with us.
Yeah, but that's so applicable
Because if you think about
to.
it, prior to that, there was nothing like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's so applicable to so many companies these days, especially with the amount of data that is available and what people are collecting and all this sort of stuff, and expectations of really knowing your clients and providing them products that are appropriate, whether it's CVS or the insurance company down the street or whatever. I mean, good on you, kind of picking a good degree to build your professional career off of.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun and it was different, and honestly, it seemed easier than like marketing statistics. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
took
yeah.
I took the fun and easy way out.
Yeah. So you did the banking for a little bit, and then you joined a company called Astonish. What was that?
So, funny story. That's where I actually, we're just chatting before I got on the podcast. That's where I met Stuart Gaines, one of your other speakers at Lead World, and we'll
Uh-huh.
kind of be on a panel together. So I was working for a customer of Astonish, and they had made a conversion coming from the mortgage space into insurance, because at this time the boom, the big bubble had burst on mortgages, and they made the transition. And so they gotten to know me, and I'd gotten to know them, and they recruited me to come work for them. So again, dating myself, but this was back when websites were just first getting popular. I think I got my first Facebook page while I worked for them 10 years ago. And this whole new world of insurance was opening up, of people going on the internet. The referrals or the community events were still there, but these new internet buyers were coming into town, and agents had to figure out how to ride that wave. And so we did everything from websites to CRM tools, things like sending a thank you, an autoresponder from your website saying thank you for your submission was a big deal. So we tried to automate a whole customer life cycle. And the challenges we faced were pretty robust, because we're dealing with sort of a demographic that doesn't embrace change or technology very well. And Michael, I would say not their fault. Their job is to underwrite risk every day, and what is change?
Right.
Change is risk written all over it. So a lot of apprehension. The internet buyer 10 years ago was different than it is today. The internet buyer today is you and me. 10 years ago, it might have been, my brother that's got, 2 DUIs and, maybe has insurance sometimes. And so we're sort of trying to navigate this whole thing, but, getting agents to understand that you had to have a different sales process for an internet lead than a referral. And one of the most brilliant things that company did was we put a recorded phone number on everybody's website. So when our clients would call up, be very upset, I'm not getting an ROI, I'm not getting an ROI, we would just hit play and listen to the idea that someone calls in and says, hey, I was on your website, I need a quote. And somebody would say, great, can we call you back 3 days from now?
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yep.
that was a training issue that we started tackling. Long story short, that company had a sordid reputation, but eventually got sold into Zywave. And I broke free and started my own firm, right before it got sold to Zywave.
Yeah. Before we get into that, it's a funny story, but it kind of still happens today. I was there was a stint in my career where I was a lead generator, worked for a company that generated insurance leads, auto, health, life, you name it. And we'd often get agencies that would call and go, hey, your leads are really horrible. And we'd be like, oh, really? It's so strange, because XY over here is doing very well with him. Tell me about your process and what do you do? So we send you a lead in real time. That means the person's filling it out. We send it to you. What do you do then? And they go, well, we send an email to them. I go,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's good. That's good. What else? Well, we wait for them to call us back. We're like, well, okay. So you had a good start with the email, but you actually have to pick up the phone and call these people immediately if you really want to grab them while they're hot, and waiting for them to call you back is going to be, just wishing on luck for the most part. But that's sort of evolved over time. And I'm sure when you were at Astonish, that was a lot of the, mindset, right? Was because they're probably used to just getting referrals, right? Or people in their neighborhood and their family and
They
friends and
are,
all that
but
sort of stuff.
one of my they are, but if I can just, get on my soapbox for a
Yeah.
moment. One of our frustrations that we say is that, there's some basic sales principles, whether it's a referral or an internet lead, that we all probably need to embrace. And we find even with the referral, they're not embracing, a strategy that makes sense. So, quoting over the phone is still very taboo for many agencies. And, I keep saying, if you can't quote over the phone, you got to at least get rid of your quote sheet. So we're going ahead and we're getting information from somebody and writing it into a sheet. That's basically an interrogation. It doesn't talk to you about, you mentioned you had a dog. It doesn't talk about life insurance. It just asks you all these questions, which again, if I have my choice, would I rather spend my time with a human, or should I type those into a form?
Yeah.
So we don't quote over the phone. We email quotes, which puts the onus on the client who is not astute in insurance to burn calories to try to figure out what you're recommending to them. And generally that leads to more and more questions and uncertainty and fear, or just makes it about price. So even if it's a referral or an internet lead, like there are some basic sales strategies that we find still agents have built sales strategies to meet what works best for them. It's most convenient for them. And they've really stopped thinking about that prospect and how to sell it and what's best for them. And so no matter type of lead, we kind of fight against that. Internet leads in particular, you have to be fierce. But if you can't do it to a referral, don't get in the internet game pond.
No,
So you can figure that out.
Yeah, that's the last thing you want to do. Well, tell me a little bit, because I'm not a part of the insurance industry per se from that side of the table. What is it that's stopping people, or that hesitancy to do the quotes over the phone? Maybe that's changed now. Maybe that's not there. But what was it back then? Was it just a process thing, or?
So it's a couple of things. It's behind our eyeballs, right? Like it's the story we tell ourselves because we're not comfortable doing something new. So we make up reasons why we can't, right? And that's like a powerful concept they can lose in any part of your life. If you're struggling to stick your neck out, what's the story I'm telling myself? The story we tell ourselves is our technology is slow. No one wants to be on the phone with us that long. If I do a quote over the phone, I'm not exhausting every opportunity and it's not the best quality work. In order for me to do this right, what if I can't, what if I get halfway through and the internet stops working? And so we tell ourselves about the 10% of the time that we're going to not be able to do it. And we forget the 90.
Yeah.
Right.
I bet also the fear of rejection is an issue too, right? Because if I'm telling somebody a price over the phone, they can immediately go, that's really expensive. And then, oh my God, what do I do now?
Absolutely, that's a problem. And then it's also an issue when we talk about estimating, right? So we say, hey, if you're in personal lines, put it in the rater. And everyone goes, that's not right. That's not right. I go, I understand. And you need to work on making it more right with your companies. But all you have to do is say, hey, Michael, I'm getting some initial indications back from our top companies. This is looking really good. Why don't I do this? I'm going to form up one and see if that's a good fit for you. And say, hey, we haven't run any reports yet, so it might change, but it's looking in this range. So let's take the next couple minutes and firm that up and see what we can do. That's different than if I run your report and find out that you've had 2 DUIs. I can say, oh, Michael, you had said, you had a clean driving record. I'm seeing these 2 DUIs. Does this sound familiar? Oh, yeah. I forgot. Okay, we got to change gears a little bit, but we have to be able to think on our feet. And fear of rejection is one. But I fight with people a lot for the simple reason when they say like, oh, it's not our best quality work. I'm like, no, you want to go send it out to 5 companies, which makes the agency unprofitable, the amount of time you're spending to get the lowest rate. So now you're selling on rate, not about which company you feel is the best to place the business with. And in personal lines, the lowest rate this year is the highest rate next year because they're going to take rate. So you're setting yourself up for a huge disaster. Instead, you should be working to place business with your partners and not make it about rate. People struggle with that. They say that's not doing the best job for the customer. I go, that's only if you're selling on price. If you're selling on yourself, on your value, the best job for the customer is they have you as their agent. And that's where we end the conversation.
Yeah, I love that because I think not just in insurance, but in anything, it's so easy, especially things that are sort of commoditized to some extent, to get stuck in just looking for the lowest rate and not the education and the service that goes behind it. And sometimes that's hard, to show the value in the customer service. But if you really are creating a relationship with somebody, that'll be apparent, right?
Absolutely. And you know what the best sales call is one where you've improved somebody's day. You've taught them something that they didn't know so they are empowered to make a decision. And you found a connection to somebody new that was a total stranger. If you
Yeah.
do those three things on every sales call, you're going to sell more than you can handle.
Oh, definitely.
And it's like, it's so simple, right? It's like the simplest thing in the world. Find a connection, improve somebody's day, and teach them something new.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. So you went from Astonish and then took what you learned there, and you say, this is what we can do to really help companies really build their whole package, not just maybe an online presence or that sort of thing. How was that transition? Was that something you were thinking about for a while? You're like, okay, this is something I could really help with, and then the timing came and you started your own company.
So it's really funny. You're taking me like down like the path of memory lane.
Yeah.
At the time, in full transparency, I'm a huge believer. I was one of the original Astonished customer employees. I had some shares of the company. Like I was really all bought in, and we had gotten private equity money at some point, and that really took the company in a different direction. And I held on, and because I really loved the clients, I loved the team. Things started changing pretty rapidly, and I kind of woke up one New Year's Day and just said, we're just no longer. I'm not a good fit here anymore. It's not their fault,
Yeah,
but it's
it
on me. It's
happens.
my career to figure out what's next. I'm not going to sit here and get bitter or angry. It's their company. I don't have the say. So I started thinking about what that would look like, and I started applying for jobs, right? And I kept being like, do I want to work at MetLife? Do I want to work at, and I kept being like, oh my gosh, all these big companies are so not me anymore. I was in this
Yeah.
fast startup world. Like, how am I going to go work for a carrier? I'm going to want to like jump off a cliff.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so I kept thinking about it, and I was like, kept talking to my clients a little bit about it, ones I really trusted, and they're like, go off on your own. And I remember telling my husband, because he's a little bit more conservative, I'm leaving a 6-figure job, full health insurance, the whole
Yeah.
night. It's like, I think I want to do this. And he just looked at me and said, if you want to do it. And I was like, whoa, Captain Conservative
Uh-oh.
bought in.
Uh-oh.
So, yeah, worked away and did it. And it was just one of those, I couldn't imagine it any other way.
Yeah.
And I couldn't imagine have got out at that point and gotten, the JOB side of things either. So
Yeah.
it
Well,
worked out.
on this show, we like to have, we have a lot of founders and CEOs and all that sort of stuff across different industries on this podcast. And I do like to ask a couple questions regarding that, because it is a big risk to sort of go from that secure job to something completely unpredictable for the most part. How did you make that jump? I know you got you just said you talked to your husband about it and all this sort of stuff, but did you have potential clients already sort of in the wings that you could immediately bring on board and just kind of go for it and build from there? Because that's one of the hardest things is building that first, getting those first couple clients. How'd you do it?
So, yeah. So honestly, Michael, between you and I never thought of myself as a salesperson, and
Yeah.
like my whole life. I was kind of always on the training and account management side, loved helping people, loved connecting with people, but our sales team was like fierce sharks. And I was like, yeah, that's not me. But what I didn't really realize was that when I wanted it to be me, it definitely was me. So I was on the training team, which means we had commissions. So I had a base salary and commissions. When I decided in my head that this was the direction I was going to go, I went on an absolute like bender of a sales tear, because
Yeah.
in my head, there was like that gun to my head, right? Like, you have to go after what you want. This is your avenue to do it. And honestly, in probably that 6-month period, I sold a ton. I was on the road Monday through Friday. Like, me and my husband had the agreement, like, go do it, put the money in savings, like, but go. And so, it was a roller coaster. It was grueling. It was exhausting. But I realized, like, when I became super committed to something, that I could go out there, and it wasn't like a sleazy sale. It was like, I really
Oh,
cared about the people, but
yeah.
instead of selling them a $5,000 training contract, I was like, you need a $12,000 training contract. And so I was able to bank a whole bunch of money. Like I said, my husband was employed, but the coolest thing ever, like I said, Astonish didn't have always the greatest reputation. But at the end, I had a good reputation. And so the kind of the new C-level suite that was running the show, they didn't really want my salary on there anymore. And so I was able to negotiate out with them and ultimately take some of the client contracts with me, because they were like, hey, if we can get rid of your salary and you can still service them and keep the clients happy, we'll pay you, a 1099 contractor fee. So that
Oh,
made
good.
that transition, like I didn't have to break up my clients. There's non-competes. And so that made that very, very simple. And then I did have a couple clients in the wings that I was like, we're burning out your client. You're going to sign up with me on the new company. And we just sort of went for it. But from day one, if I look back, one of the keys to success I always felt I had was like, I treated this like this was a business, not my consulting hustle. And so like we got
Yes.
a website, we got HubSpot, we got like infrastructure very, very quickly that was expensive and made me want to throw up sometimes. But I knew this was either going to be Kelly's little consulting firm and we were going to be little, or we were going to say, hey, in 5 years, we're pulling in $1 million every year, and that was the difference that we really took. So to me, that was kind of the, live off of, rice and beans and the Dave Ramsey, spend as little as you can
Right.
so that you can kind of get through it. And we adopted that. And I feel like that was a big moment that got me to where I am today. And,
Yeah.
there's still more challenges, but, once you kind of pass the 5-year mark where most businesses don't make it, to me, it needed to be a business, not something I was working out of my house on.
Yep. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome. So let's talk about it a little bit. So you've got app, which you call agency performance partners, and give me the rundown. Is it really soup to nuts, or are there specific things that you're really focused on helping agency owners do?
Yeah, we kind of break it down into there's four things we do to just keep it simple, right? We have an agency physical, top to bottom. Come in, do you have the right culture, people on the bus? Are you looking at the right metrics? What's your agency really going to be capable of doing, and what's holding you back? Like I was just at one agency, and had a great dichotomy of a team, these very experienced 60 something year old anchors on the team and this new blood, and they were constantly in conflict, and the ownership is newer, so they want to hold on to paper and they want to hold on to this, and I don't sell insurance, no, that's a producer's job. And the new people are like, yeah, I want to help people, absolutely, let's text message them. And so you have this constant conflict. And the owners are like, of course we're going to go down this direction. So, helping them organize and say, hey, we need to start making maybe some golden handshakes and getting some of these older people to retire so you can do what you want faster. But sometimes it takes that outsider to do that gut check with you.
Yeah.
Say, hey, yeah, you're not gonna have what you want until they leave. So that's one. And then we have our 3AppX program. So these are 6-month training programs with your team. Our newest one is time management, because in every agency I go into, I hear I'm so busy. And so after 10 years and being in 700 agencies, I was just like, if I hear I'm so busy one more time, I might stab myself in the face with a pen. Because it's like, what are you busy doing? And you find out that they're busy texting people on their phone, or they're busy following up on an LPR as opposed to following up on an account round. And so we've helped blast through and say, hey, this 6-month program, you're going to manage your emails, you're going to manage your activities, you're going to manage your desk, you're going to have no notebooks hanging around, we're going to look at seasonality, we're going to divide up the book correctly. But after this is done, like, you're in fighting mode and you can go ahead and take on the world. Our most popular program was our cornerstone, the one we launched first, which is the proactive renewal call. So for many agencies, early on, we all got taught, don't poke the sleeping bear, don't call your customer, they're going to leave, or they're going to want to shop. And I was like, 10 years ago, I can sort of get my head around that being on its way out, but it's still here today, a decade later. And here's the problem, Michael. The direct writers are going to send over $7 billion to alert people that, they're an option. So they're poking the sleeping bear every time that we watch the NFL on a Sunday.
Right.
And if we don't hug the bear versus, say we want to love you and we care about you and we're going to look at your policy, we're going to talk to you, they're getting poked by Flow and Mayhem and all these other things, and they can go get a quote far more convenient than they could at an independent agent, right? So you have that scenario where if you call everybody once a year, tell them you love them, review their policies, improve their coverage, your retention bumps 2%, 2 points, you're cross-selling more, you're improving coverage, you're getting referrals, and your staff is actually happier because they're hearing the words, thank you.
Yeah. And it goes back to relationships, right?
Yeah.
And not just the bottom line sale. It's about continuing to cultivate those relationships. One thing you mentioned though, which is interesting because I was talking to someone in the mortgage industry about different sale, the sort of transition of salespeople, generational salespeople, and that there's really a new generation of sales guys, and it's not necessarily pick up the phone. It is a lot of text, or different things. And how do you get people to sort of utilize these new forms of communication that where younger prospects want to communicate? I mean, some people want to communicate via Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or text and they don't pick up the phone, so that's an interesting point. And it actually kind of maybe leads into a little bit of what you're talking about to some extent. Maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong, with the session that you're going to be having at Lead Generation World, which is really about, is it the salesperson or is it the process? Maybe, is there a little overlap there?
Absolutely. I mean, we have this strong stance, and I've been blessed to work with some really large commercial shops, where literally in California, there's about 10 producers right now sitting there that will have suitcases in their office. And if they get a lead, they're going to LAX and booking the first flight to get there. And like, that's a level, when I talk to agents about that, they're like, oh my goodness. I'm like, no, like that's their culture. Like that's how they chose to do. They've figured out how to get unicorns. There's 28-year-olds making $750,000 a year, because they put the work in like nobody's else. But you can have unicorns, or you can go ahead and build the world's greatest process that you can plug really good people into. Unicorns tend to come with some of the attitude, the intensity, the big personalities. Yeah, they play hard, they fall big, and you either have that culture, but for most agencies, that's rare. So to me, it's you have to get in a sales process, and you have to find someone with a sales aptitude that can follow a process. When you have salespeople that are all over the map and their documentation isn't good, this is still insurance. We're still protecting people's financial futures. We can't, imagine having a stockbroker that didn't fill out the paperwork. Well, the trade doesn't go through, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
You have to you balance it out, but it should be your agency's process that everybody is then following, because then you can couple it with automation, how to recruit to find that right personality. If you think about it, in car dealerships, there were some of the best trained salespeople in America. They don't go out and find who can bring in the most leads to the dealership. No, you sit behind your desk. When that lead is handed to you, it's who can woo that customer to buy the biggest, most expensive car that we can.
Yeah.
And that's how agents need to think about it. You can drive the leads today now. You need to figure out who can convert them.
Yep. Do you find, just to kind of go back a little, because I was just thinking, I was like, maybe insurance agents aren't utilizing the same tools, or maybe they don't need to, that maybe other verticals are using, like this mortgage guy I was referencing, that's got people communicating a lot via text these days with updates and all this sort of, and certainly the process is different. So maybe it doesn't come into play as much. Do you see that consumers are looking to communicate a little bit differently for insurance than they had 10 years ago?
I think definitely we're all communicating differently, right? We're all shopping for insurance at work, so chatbots are great.
Yeah.
I think we all don't have enough time in our day. So if we're going to exchange time, that's the first sale. We always say, like, your first sale is getting someone to give you their time.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
And so however that is, you have to show value in the first way that they like to communicate, whether that's a form, a chatbot, instant messenger, text. But the reality is that we need to convert our speedy responsiveness into some kind of verbal communication, right? And this goes into, who is your agency? do you belong serving everybody under the sun? If it's a person that wants insurance for 2 months, let them go knock themselves out with Geico, right? Like, does your business really belong serving that person? But you have to understand that now more than ever, I'll be 38 this Sunday, and I control 17 insurance policies. So if I go onto your website form at 11 o'clock at night because I just landed in Kansas City and something's happened and I need insurance, you can't look at me like a terrible lead, right? You have to look at me like, I wanted to fill out a form because it's 11 o'clock at night and I need to get the process started, and you need to honor that. But I'm happy to get on a phone call once I know you're not going to waste my time. If you can't help me and you're not impressive to me, I don't want to get on the phone.
Yeah.
And it goes into, and we can kind of talk about this too. It's like there's 4 different personality types of buyers. And I don't know as enough salespeople really understand that they have to be able to get their personality type down pat and amend their sales process based on the personality type, and how much money we're leaving on the table by not making those adjustments in our sales process.
Okay, so obviously that's probably a long conversation, but touch base on the 4 things just really quickly,
Yeah. So there's 4. Driver is short, sweet, direct, often intimidating, but they don't want to hear a runaround. You need to impress them off the bat. Otherwise, they literally will treat you kind of crappy.
Yeah.
They make decisions fast, and if you impress them, they'll do whatever you say. But don't expect the warm fuzzies, and in the long run. So somebody who's timid and shy and says, "Well, maybe you should think about an umbrella policy." They're like, "Whatever, get away." You're not worth my time. Like, I have got all these things going on. I need someone that's at my level and tells me what to do and goes for it. So oftentimes we struggle with that because they take control very easily, and we really need to work on their terms. You're amiable. I mean, there's tons of amiables in the world. Very simply put, they're the people that don't make decisions. They hate making decisions. They hate risk. They need a ton of rapport building. So you're going to have to learn about their kids, their cat, their dog, what they're making for dinner, all of these things. And then you can earn the right to tell them what to do, but you have to reduce risk. So you have to tell them, I'll take care of canceling your policies. Something doesn't work, I'm here for you. Or you can always switch to another agent. You need to reduce all risk, tell them what to do, and put a deadline on them that you are willing to hold to. Not you call me by Friday or else, but call me by Friday, I'm shutting your file, otherwise we're doing this next year, because now there's risk of them losing out with you. But those are the worst because they'll kick the can down the road forever, and you'll think you're getting somewhere and you're not. There's your expressive. Which is, they need enough rapport building, but not excessive by any means. You need to be impressive to them, and they will be your biggest referral sources. They're fiercely loyal. They think when they've interviewed you, I got a guy, he's my guy, he helps me out, but the downside to them is if you let them down, the loyalty is gone. Like, you're dead, right? So if you say, I'm going to send you the quote Tuesday and it's Wednesday, don't expect them to call you back. They're going to ghost you. They're done. You've disrespected them to a large degree. And the final one is analytical, which is just lots of questions. They have researched your whole company before you've even gotten there.
Yeah.
So they're going to fire questions. They buy on their time. They do need to think about it, but they honor every deadline that they give you, and they will tell you exactly where you stand. But if you don't give them all the data points they need, they won't buy.
So not every prospect's the same. You gotta figure this out pretty quickly, usually on a call.
Yeah, and in our session, that's the first step of our sales process, is following kind of a rapport building model. By doing it consistently on every call for 3 minutes, you should at the end of that be able to pretty accurately tell what personality somebody is to amend your style.
Yeah. Okay. So you've been agency performance partners, you said, for about 5 years now, or over 5 years. What would you say, you work with a bunch of companies across the country. What would you say the most predictable issue is at an agency? Like, you're going to walk in here, this one's going to be probably right at the top.
The most predictable.
Or is it not predictable at all? Are they all different?
It's so funny because I was at one. Yeah. I mean, they're all different, but we kind of break it down into, like, there's the top 10 characteristics, but leadership has to be very clear on who they are and what their mission is,
So
you know?
communication. Yeah.
Yeah.
From
Well, and
leadership.
it's also just like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, there's a lot of different types of insurance agents, you know? There's a lot of different types of bakeries. There's a lot of different types of grocery stores. And when you sit there and you don't have any identity or what your purpose is, you're basically an agent who's running, you know, you're an agent, not a business owner. And we
Mm,
really encourage agencies, you've got to be a business owner. Business owners don't hire all their friends and family, right? You know, business owners have a marketing budget. Business owners fire people if they're not working out. You know,
yeah.
agents manage a book of business and have some help. And there's a big difference mentality wise on that. You know, we definitely focus a lot. The biggest thing we see agencies need more than anything is just processes and procedures. You know, what's your customer experience? How do you manage it? How do you monitor it? And more than anything, like, how are you going to train it and get it ingrained in every person? We use Chick-fil-A a lot, right? Like, my pleasure. You can have 9 million dipping sauces. You know, like,
Hmm.
if your food's not ready, they bring it out to your car. Like, that's intentional. You know, that wasn't something that one guy said one day I'm going to do. And your agency can have that same mentality. If they can train 17-year-olds how to do it, we can train licensed professionals how to do it.
Yeah. That's interesting. You know, you got me thinking. I remember, I recall somebody telling me that, oh, but maybe it was a different industry, but I'm assuming it's kind of applies here. And I'll ask you to confirm. Are there fewer and fewer people sort of getting into becoming into the business as far as a insurance agent, or is it fine? I mean, is it hard to find good young people?
I don't, so like, this is where I struggle a tad bit because I don't think that a 21-year-old necessarily belongs in an independent agency today. Um, I think that they belong in a place where they can be mentored, that they can specialize, that someone's going to be on them. Like, when you're in a small business, like, you have to add value on the team. There's just not that much time or
Yeah.
bandwidth to kind of invest in somebody. And so we often tell agencies, you're either a training shop or you need to find somebody with experience. And we've seen plenty of really successful training shops, but they have to have some basic like skills. You know, it's funny that cultural divide today is so interesting. One of our clients posted on Facebook saying that, you know, they had a new intern that started and they had to tell them where to put a stamp on an envelope because they had never done it. Like, we can laugh because that to me it's like, what? But this is what we're dealing with, you know? Like,
Yeah.
so you're going to have them do entry level stuff like the mail
Yeah.
in an agency. And they're like, what is this mail? Like, you
Yeah.
guys have? Or they don't like talking on the phone. That generation doesn't do it. So you want them to answer phone calls. And they're like, what? What do I do? I talk to you. So, like, there's the entry level job of the past is now like really an entry level job of like kind of basic blocking and tackling skills. So I say, you know, find someone that's in their late 20s, you know, has had a few jobs, understands good, bad, and different, like how the corporate world works, knows how to check email. I mean, we've had some people come in saying, how do I get into Outlook? I've never been in Outlook before because they were always on like Gmail or their personal email, you know? So
Hmm.
if you want to teach some of those basic skills, you know, I think that that's a big ask for a small business. I think they'd do better off at a big company. And then as they get a little older, meander on over to the small business side.
Yeah. Um, is yeah, it's just interesting to think about that, this how generational. I look at my kids and I have a 17, well, she's 16, she'll be 17 here in a month, and I don't think, you know, she's ever really, she does a lot of video chat, she does you know, a lot of texting, of course, not a lot of phone calls. In fact, most of her calls are all video chat, you know, FaceTime kind of thing. And
I
for
know, which
someone,
like our generation is like, I don't want you to like see me like this right
yeah,
now.
exactly. We're like, no video, no video,
Like,
no video.
oh my gosh, why is this in my face?
Yeah, so it's really interesting to see how that's going to continue to evolve, and so that kind of leads me to another question. Is, you know, you're obviously very focused on relationships and customer service and building something that provides value outside of just the price point.
Yeah.
But how do you see you know, automation sort of playing a part in agencies these days? You know.
So I think it's the only way. And I think we have to embrace it. And the major reason I feel like we have to embrace it is that, you know, we need to keep leveling up our staff to not do kind of grunt work. Right now, we're doing a terrible job following up on quotes. So one thing we didn't talk about is my firm also does secret shopper calls. And, right now, out of the last 50 secret shopper calls, 2 out of 50 has gotten more than 2 follow-ups.
Oh, wow.
And most got 1. And it was like, and most people got an emailed quote with like, just let me know what you want to do.
Yeah.
Not even like call to action, like bind here now. And so what we can't guarantee our staff is going to do, we need to automate. And we also need to automate because here's the deal. In insurance, it's not uncommon for my clients to have 85 logins to different tools. Like carriers, technology, finance companies, you name it. We're logging in, we're logging out all day long. Automation has to come by to remind me that maybe I didn't do XYZ because, there's 17 steps in a process. Automation needs to remind us that sometimes our data is not 100%. Automation needs to say that if I'm out sick today, that client's still going to get a follow-up and isn't dependent on a person. Or if it's dependent on a person, that we're automating the tasks so the person doesn't have to think about who to call or when to call. The system says, do this next.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in automation. I think it's, we automate a lot and, hey, automation's going to break, right? I just got an email this week, one of our campaigns on our website has a discount from like 2016 that's sending out. Is that proud?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But did that campaign do more good than harm over the past couple of years? Absolutely. So we just have to be on top of our game a little bit more. That's the fear of automation, is not understanding what's happening on the back end. But I think it's the only way that we're going to really survive and compete as we move forward. And
and become more efficient and effective. I bet that secret shopper service has got to be great. I mean, it really has got to open up the eyes to the businesses that get it, to see what's really going on.
Yeah, we've had everything from people hire us through secret shoppers. They don't tell anything, and then they have a big team meeting where they literally, because the secret shoppers do a video that goes to the agency of their experience. So it's a survey, a video, all the like quotes and things like that. And so they've actually done like a movie night where they're watching all the secret shopper videos and like popcorn and like, guys, this is where we are.
Oh my gosh.
So, and people can have fun with it. And some people are absolutely mortified and terrified and felt like their trust was violated with their employer. And it's like, here's the thing, at the end of the day, if anything, it's a reflection of the employer. Where's the policy, where's the procedure that you violated? If it's not in writing, it's their problem, not yours. We just shine light the fact that there is no guideline for this person to even follow.
Yeah.
You have a guideline, you don't follow it, that's a different story.
Yeah. No, that's a great service. Well, I want to thank you for joining me today. It's been fun. We could probably keep talking for another hour if we wanted to, because there is so much to talk about, and there's so many different holes, or just opportunities. Maybe holes is the wrong word. Opportunities for businesses to get better. If they wanted to reach out to you with other questions, how would they do that?
Sure. So, first of all, we're on Aubrey's social media channels. So if you want to check us out, you can definitely do that. Just look for Agency Performance Partners. Go to our website. I will say this, Michael, one of the things that we've been commenting on is that we give away more for free than anything. So if you're interested, our blog has over 650 insurance related sales, marketing, leadership blogs on it. So you can just use the search bar and say cross-selling, time management, how to fire someone, whatever you're thinking about. And it's all there for free. We don't even charge for it. Check all that stuff out. But you can go directly on our website. There's actually a button everywhere you look on my website that says book an appointment with us. So you can click that button, get on our calendar, and we'll talk to anybody and give you guys 30 minutes of our time, even if you just want to pick our brain.
That's awesome.
And if you want to learn more about what we do, we can have that conversation too. But we're here to help all the agents kind of figure out how to survive and thrive, because if you guys aren't there, then I'm not here. And, I've kind of put my flag on the moon. This is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. So I'd like to.
Yeah, that's great. Well, it's great to have all that information out there, and it is helpful. And And when you're really trying to, help a industry or a profession out, I mean, that's how you do it. You can't necessarily hoard it all. And plus, it's my belief that when you give out sort of best practices and these different things, that it actually encourages more conversation and more business. It's not a scarcity thing, right? It's not hoarding the information. Only if you pay me, I'm going to give this to you.
Yeah, I don't have anything like that. In fact, when you talk about like sales cycle, our sales cycle is generally 2 years. So at Lead World 2020,
Yep.
people we meet there will probably in a 2-year period, 1.5 to 2 years, kind of come back to us and say, I saw you spoke. I think I have a problem that I need your help with.
Yeah.
And so that has to do with our lead nurturing and our automation and things like that. But, when you really think about it, like we want to give to get in the long run.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you at the conference, and we'll talk to you then.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having us.